idea is artists create art based on life experiences, and Module 3, artists document people and their lives. The art standards are construct illustrations to communicate ideas or tell a story about a historical event. Use additive and subtractive processes in making simple sculptural forms. Our objectives in this one is learn to see forms in architecture so we can document people's lives, and create an original work of art by combining forms using value and or sculptural processes, and we're going to use mostly subtractive processes in this sculpture. But first, before we start, we want to review, because sometimes I come to the children before they've reached the point in their studies that they're studying about missions in California history. So we look at what a mission was. We talk about the 21 missions, how they were built. We talk about the lives of the people in California before the Spanish fathers brought the missions, and the fact that they were hunter-gatherers, so that the priests actually taught them to raise crops, raise cattle. And we take a little look at what a mission layout would look like if they don't have the idea in their head yet. And we see that it was built as well as a town, a fortress, and the main building, of course, is always the church. And we talk about how people are out in the fields working, and they're fishing, and everybody's creating a life, and that they have to make everything from what they find, from their soap to their candles to their pottery. Everything is made at the mission, and these missions became the main towns in California. And then we talk a little bit about mission architecture, the fact that they were made of adobe, and that it was Spanish-style architecture, because that's where the fathers had come from. They had come from Spain before they came to Mexico and came up into California. And so we're seeing the arched openings. We're seeing the tiled roofs. We talk about how they make the tiles, and that we use wood to build the roof first and then put the tiles over it, and that their communication system was a bell to let everybody know when it was time to come in to eat from the fields, when it was time for services, that there was no plumbing, and that on the bell towers they did use the dome, and I remind them, okay, that's what's called a hemisphere. And I use the stiffer clay. This is a great place to use the clay that's gone too stiff for them to work on their hand. And I give them approximately a 3x3 piece of clay. I also put extra plates on the table to put clay crumbs and water for when we have to join the bell tower to the main mission itself. So we take this, it is stiff, and we use a large paper clip for our tool, and we look at the wire, we hold up the part that has the 2 loops on it, and we pull the outside end of the wire and straighten that up. Now, this is too thick for us to cut through. It'll bend the wire. So what we do is we actually score it by going all the way around. We're going to cut this in half, and we can go all the way around so that we have 2 rectangles, and then we can twist, and we've got 2 rectangles. And we take the one that looks best, and that's the one that's going to make our mission. Let's see which one we like. This one looks good. And I have them rub the corners, and we talk about how the missions weren't perfect because everything was done by hand. They didn't have contractors. The people built everything. And let's start. And I keep having them. I have one plate to put trash for about every 4 students. So the first thing we want to do is put in the doors. So we put our finger under here, our thumb over. We come to where we want the middle door, always start with the middle. And we just push the tip in, put our thumb under it, and pull toward the thumb, and that creates a door. Then we can clean it up a little bit, either with our fingers or with the thing. And then we put one more on each side. Again, just pulling down and cutting out the door. And they can cut it out a little more deeply. It's good to warn them not to get too close to the top. And there are 3 doors. We can even them up a little bit. There we go. And now we're already beginning to see our mission take shape. The next thing we need to do is create the effect of the tile roof. And given that we have a rounded end on our paper clip, that's the perfect way to go. I have them just come along here and push down and make a scalloped line by joining the edges all the way across. So we get that where it's all the way across the top. And then with each one of these, we begin a row going back across the top of the mission. So I usually, just to get started, put that there. And then just keep making little indentions with the rounded end of the paper clip all the way back. And there we go. Just get everybody going. And if I do this under the document reader so they can really see it, they usually have no problem with it at all. I can see where I missed one right there. I didn't do it deeply enough. So we're going back across and make sure they're lined up and side by side so that we make sure it looks like rows of tile instead of lines. They don't have to be perfect because all those tiles were handmade and lots of them were uneven, and they had definitely had the native Californians who were unskilled labor doing it. And we can just line it up. And there we are, we're finished. And that's our main part with the arched openings from the Spanish architecture. And that's our main building. So now I'm ready to dump my crumbs. And we're ready to build the campana, which is the bell tower. What I usually have them do is look at it and see which end is going to stand up best. This would stand up better, so then I suggest, well, let's make this the top because we have to round it off. So in order to round it off, we just cut across and get rid of edges because round things don't have edges. So we got that, cut it. It's kind of like a carpenter sharpens a pencil. And once they can begin seeing that it's getting rounded, then most of them understand what to do. A few people will need help as always. But once we get it this way, then we can take our thumb and begin rubbing up to smooth it out. And if it gets a little pointy, that's no problem. You just tap it with your palm. And we've got a dome. Now this side where I twisted it is a little rough, so I can always smooth that off. This is the side I'll end up putting next to the mission. So once we get that, then we decide, okay, how about the height? Sometimes it's too high for this. That one looks okay. Get that off the bottom. And let's see, do I want to put it on this side or this side? I like it on this side this time. So I'm going to go ahead in the front, and we're going to make the roof first. So we go ahead and make our scalloped line, go all the way around. This time we're going to change up a little. Sometimes it doesn't meet, but we can always make more tiles. This time it looks like it's going to meet. Good. Now, we obviously, since we're going up to a point, cannot make them all go up. Get that down there a little more. And I have them do one, make it all the way up to the center of the top. Then we skip. And we go up. And we skip one. And we go up. And we skip and we go up. Same here. And we're almost done. Where there's one here, let's see. Let's put that one there. Then the last few. Now at this point, you don't want to end up chopping it up. So when they get to a rough spot, when they get to a spot where they're going to start just hacking it up, we stop. Now we've got these, and we do this, and you can just turn it a little bit, and you just go up as far as you need to. And that takes care of it. Oops, there's one more. This can come over. Okay, so there's the front of it. You can always brush crumbs off. Now, the next thing we're going to do is put the window for the bell. So we push in, just like we did before, hold it up, and pull down, this time just a little, not as if we're cutting a door. Once we pull down just a little bit, we can go ahead and just pull that little plug out, and that makes a window. For the sake of time, for my classes, I don't have them make all four of them around the edge, because we're usually pretty tight on time with 50-minute classes. So, but it's a really good idea if you do have time to have them make the tower windows all the way around. Then once we get that one, we're going to cut another door in the bell tower. Clean it out. And there's our mission bell tower. At this point, we want to make sure we get rid of all the crumbs now on the plate. And we're going to put the two pieces together as if they're going to fit together. Then we want to mark right here with the end of our paper clip. We want to mark where the main building comes up on the bell tower. And for that, we have to score this now. So I have them make like tic-tac-toe lines and tell them not to brush the crumbs away. That's really important for them not to brush those crumbs away. And I tell them just to mark it until it looks like raw hamburger meat. And we have to do it on both sides that are going to be stuck together, because we have to fasten these together. We're going to glue them together, and I tell them we're going to make slip, which is basically it's mud, but it will stick it together. So once again, get rid of the crumbs. And now this is where the water comes in. I just have them dribble a little water on it, not too much, and make sure they understand they're only rubbing it. They're touching it like butterfly wings, because we're trying to make this slippery without getting rid of that texture we just created. And then let's do the other side. Same way, making certain that we're just creating slip and not getting rid of the texture, because that's what's going to fasten together. Then we simply stick them together and nestle them just a little bit. Nestle them together just a little bit. Probably some slip's going to come out, that's fine. One last time, get rid of the crumbs. And then we're going to put the mission on the plate. And make sure it's centered. So we've got it on the plate, we've got it centered. And at this point, the mission's complete. We need something to make sure, since we're not firing these, we need something to make sure they're not going to dry out and fall apart. So I use white glue, and I usually just take the jug and pour it over for everybody. And it really takes a lot of glue. For a fourth grade class, maybe a quarter of a jug of glue, a gallon jug. Then I actually do have to demonstrate getting it to stick in, and it tends to form some bubbles. So we want to make sure we don't get the bubbles in. And every bit of clay needs to be covered. Now on this, the older the glue, the better, because it's going to be thicker. And we want to go up inside with our brush full and twist a little bit. Each one of those doors and window, and make sure we're filling those with glue so those two are really well sealed. And I explained to them that the glue actually does turn to plastic. They didn't know it's plastic, but they know it. They can peel it off their hands once it's dry, so it's not a big surprise. And that we're putting this on not only to fasten it to the plate, but also to seal it so it doesn't get too dry. So at this point, our mission's done. We set it aside until next week's class, and all the glue is dry, and you can't tell we ever put any on there. But it does take a good bit in the bottom of the plate to really glue it down. The following week, we paint it. And when I have them paint, I always have them paint white now, because we just run out of time as far as mixing colors. So, and real missions, all they ever had was whitewash anyway, if they put any paint on it at all. So we use white. For the terracotta, I use regular brown tempera paint, put a little bit of orange tempera paint in it, and stir it up. What I do when the children are ready to paint, everybody gets a brush and they get their paint. And I make paint stations around the room. My experience with this kind of thing is that the children are actually, they're faster and they're neater when they stand up. So I have them go around like a buffet, and I put cups of paint with sticks on it on a few tables, and they just come and get it, put it on the side of their plate, and then they can take their brush and start painting. So we've got that. And I have them go ahead. Everybody paints the white first. Then I take the white paint up and I put the brown out, or the terracotta out. When that's finished, pick that up, put the green out. That's experience, because I end up with my colors all messy, and there'll always be somebody that's doing something odd for we don't know what reason. So we just try and help them out by doing one thing at a time. Then once we get the whole mission painted, then we go to the next class. I go on with the next lesson. And the following class, we actually cut it out. And I pass the teacher scissors around, and they cut out the mission so that it's on its little grass lawn. And you can see where when we put the bougainvillea vines on, I use felt tip pens, red and green felt tip pens, and that seems to work much better. My